national policy and implementation, in particular in Indonesia.
Thank you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, colleagues, now I would like to request Hibak to share with you of what is the grand bargain. All right, this is not shopping mall bargain, right? This is humanitarian bargain. But Hibak, please enlighten us on that. Over to you.
So in 2015, there began a reform, a humanitarian reform, around quid pro quo, and it was around something called the World Humanitarian Summit. It started at the regional level and then culminated in 2016 in Istanbul. And that's actually when NEAR was founded. And amongst that, there are a multitude of stakeholders, donors, international community and NGOs, the UN, and local civil society organizations. And the product of that is actually the Grand Bargain. So it was established in 2016, and as you can see on the screen, this is actually the second iteration of it, where there were 51 commitments, but I think the most famous commitment was the one around localization, where all the stakeholders agreed to a marker of 25% of funding would go direct as possible to local and national organizations.
Now, before we go too far, colleagues might be asking, what is quid pro quo? I don't know what it is. Quid pro quo, and why is that?
Quid pro quo is basically saying one actor will work with another actor, and it's kind of, it goes both ways. So you get something and I get something.
I think in a human language, it means that the donor countries and organizations provides the funding. And then the UN organization, INGOs, our NGOs will then spend and implement that funding. But usually the one who gets credit is the one who brings the money to the ground. What the donor is saying, that acknowledgement should also go to the donors. So everyone benefited from the humanitarian aid. That's more or less what quid pro quo. Now, how do we push it forward to this to the grand bargain? What's the second part of the presentation?
Yeah, so the second iteration basically was started in 2021, and it was a shrinking of the 51 commitments to then now focus on what's called political caucuses. And the political caucuses are bringing together all of these different groups on specific topics to be able to move forward. So one of them, which has been successful up to date, is the cash caucus, and how they've had different stakeholders to move forward, how cash programming can happen. One is around intermediaries, so the role and definition of intermediaries. And then, excitingly enough, one that's coming up is around localization, where donors in the international community have agreed that we're specifically going to talk through why the 25% hasn't come to fruition since its existence in 2016.
Right. I don't know if you explained something about NEAR network. Let me just say it out loud. The microphone is louder. So NEAR is the abbreviation of Network of Empowered Aid Recipients. Response. You know, in the olden time, when I was much younger, the aid recipients used to be just beneficiaries. They receive and thank you very much. But now, with this network, they would like to empower these aid recipients and response to become more, have their presence in the conversation. So, you have been talking about the grand bargain and touching on localization. Now, Kansa, you've been talking about localization at length yesterday, right? But now, in relation to localization at the national level, this is where the national reference group is. What is your view on that? And after that, I ask you to explain what NRG is. Just give us what the scene at the national level.
Yeah. So maybe one of the reasons why there is a need or a call for the national reference groups, seen from an international perspective, some of the challenges that are sometimes faced with responding to humanitarian crises and to emergencies is basically who to work with as an international organization. When internationals are coming in, then who is it that you want to be coordinating with? Who should be allowed into the clusters? Who should be included in the different coordination mechanisms that are there? this has been a headache for many of the international organizations for quite some time, that there has been a recognition or knowledge that there was a lot of local responses going on, a lot of local activity, many national local organizations were already responding to the crisis in a given country. But there has been confusion about then who should you be speaking to? Who should you involve in that coordination? If, let's say, in a country there's maybe 200 or many more national and local organizations responding, then who do you bring into your coordination mechanism? Who do you coordinate with? And that has been a key challenge, I guess, for the localization agenda, that the international system has been aware that there are more happening, but unable to figure out exactly how to include them in coordination, basically. So having kind of a wider network of initiatives to be coordinated. This is one of the things that the national reference groups are trying to respond to. So basically setting up a mechanism, a nationally driven mechanism, not an international driven one, but a national driven mechanism that are able to better figure out who to coordinate with and how. And that's what Indonesia is also looking at setting up, basically to manage that problem with who is actually being coordinated by who when there is a humanitarian experience.
Thank you, Bencana. So colleagues, sorry. You're looking at the States now, Katja from Denmark, Iqbal from Somalia, and myself from Bali. And this being said, from the global north to global south, Iqbal, could you now just elaborate a bit on the benchmarking and then quickly move the energy?
Sure. So the idea was really, like Katja just said, is how do we ensure that local leadership exists? How do we ensure that coordination is happening, and how do we recognize the challenges that exist within the international community? The Grand Bargain has decided in the second iteration that there are two enabling priorities that they want to work on. One being improving the quality of funding, so multi-year funding, type of funding, and more flexible funding, especially with the backdrop of COVID-19. And then the second is how to support local responders. I'm not a fan of the terminology capacity strengthening or capacity building. It's more for me sharing, and so it's recognizing the abilities of local actors. And then finally, I think more participation from affected communities and giving them the agency and dignity to be able to say what they want when they're a part of the agency.
I guess what I can have you read on the screen, on one part is about the money, right? And the other part is about the power. And this two cannot go in separate. Managing the money better in such a way that it will also enhance the local leaders in doing the humanitarian aid. Go ahead, would you like to move to the next screen? Yeah. Go ahead.
So NRGs. NRGs, the whole purpose of the NRGs is that there currently exists a humanitarian system in which at times there's exclusivity and there isn't inclusivity of local actors. And so we were looking at the current coordination system and how we could move forward in improving local actors' response and their ability to coordinate better. And so the idea of the NRGs is to be led by local actors and local responders and local organizations, but to work with the humanitarian ecosystem. So the donors, the international civil society groups, the UN, to be able to move forward with the work. But really, it started also off as this idea of how do we link the national conversation and the national discourse to the global conversation that's happening, and how do we hold all different parties to account about what policies move forward and what procedures and what activities.
Very good. Now, can we move to the next slide, please? Right. Please continue.
So it started off with a conversation with what they call the eminent person of the department, which is Yana. is the Secretary General of NRC, former head of OCHA, and he tasked NIR and OCHA with the responsibility of developing the guidance note and a concept note for what NRGs are. From there, we did a stakeholder analysis, we spoke to many of our members, and came back with a concept of working with OCHA, Charter for Change, what they call the Grand Market Work Stream 2, which focuses on localization. We've now been able to kind of move forward with the concept note. And luckily enough, there are a few countries with local leaders who are very interested in moving this forward.
Right, colleagues, so the National Reference Group concept paper was developed jointly by NIR Network and OCHA. Now right here we have Mbak Titi from UN OCHA. She's sitting right here where we manage all of this. So she's the counterpart of NIR Network and headquarters to develop the concept of national reference. Now before we go on, let me ask Kasa, in your view, this is a challenge and opportunity where the national level NGOs and CSOs are expected to step forward and sitting at the same level with the donors, with the UN and others. Question to you, in your view and your research, do you think that national NGOs and CSOs, particularly in Indonesia, are ready for that challenge and opportunity?
That is a very, very good question.
I know it's a good question, I know, that's why I asked it to you.
Yeah, so there is no simple answer to this. Let me maybe just begin there. I think that, I actually do think that some parts of the Indonesian civil society is actually quite ready and has, working in a way where they are very ready to actually engage with donors and engage in these coordination fora. I absolutely think that there are there are institutions, there are structures, systems, people out there, organizations who can actually quite easily engage. That's what I've been finding in many of the discussions I've been having, that there's a lot more capacity, I guess, even if we don't like the word. There's a lot more than I think many local national organizations are often credited for by the international system. So maybe that's one perspective. Another perspective is that, something that, two more things. There's also work to be done still about how to engage with the international system more widely. So instead of maybe just a handful of organizations or people driving that cooperation, it could be interesting to broaden that conversation more widely in the Indonesian civil society. And I said a little bit the same thing yesterday, where we can see the conversation about localization is still happening at a fairly high level in the Indonesian civil society. And I think it's really time to bring that conversation to national and local organizations more broadly than has been the case so far. And we just allowed just one more point. And that's around the behavior of the international organizations and institutions, who also need to start thinking more, and they're already starting, but really start to question what do they see as good humanitarian intervention, what is good humanitarian action, what qualifies as what humanitarianism is, because it can actually look a little bit different. There are standards, there are systems, absolutely, let's stick to that, but let's also start to challenge our perceptions about what qualifies as good humanitarian action in the different countries where there's humanitarian action happening.
Okay, now let me add to that explanation. Whether Indonesia is ready or not. At the moment, in the office of Mbak Titi, the civil society is represented by three larger networks. Indonesian Society for Disaster Management, the Humanitarian Forum Indonesia, and the other one is and then National Platform for Disaster Reduction. Three major networks, right? And then there is also a network like Sadar that have about 700 NGOs. And newly formed MDMC, right? Muhammadiyah. And then Human Initiative. There are network and NGOs in Indonesia that I think are more than ready to sit in the energy, question and debate, like what you said. Are the international community ready to sit with them? Can you imagine the donor like World Bank or BNPB willing to sit in civil society and talk about humanitarian? This goes beyond normal conversation. But this is a good opportunity, right? So Indonesia is a good case to pick it up. So in fact, let's move on to the next one. Now that we more or less understand the concept and the topic, what is the architecture of economic movement? Next slide, please.
So there's been a back and forth kind of conversation, right, of what an NRG could be. It's not to replace the HCT. It's not to replace certain mechanisms that exist today. It's to complement them. It's to complement them and ensure that this particular group is led by local actors. It's conversations that are linked to the grand bargain and hopefully the ISC in the future. And so there's a very clear kind of step through to be able to determine that the NRGs are possible in specific countries. And I think we're even past that because I think that conversation is happening in many, many countries where we talk about the global level, we're pushing as hard as we can, including with your representation, to be able to push to make sure that these are funded properly, that they're supported, and that there's actual engagement, real engagement from the international community.
Right. Nipa was saying with my representation, so without bragging too much, I have been requested by Near Network to sit as the Sherpa at the Grand Market and at the facilitation group. So I am voicing the concern of the whole global south, half of the world, right? More than that, even in order to push this thing. I guess my highlight to this is the humanitarian country team, HCT, the national platform, all remain there. How it will complement is to provide yet another platform, I hate the word platform, another avenue where collectively we could speak with our counterparts at the same level. I guess our common challenge here, not that it's insurmountable in Indonesia. The government are very hospitable. They're open to many ideas, right? So I guess in the case of Indonesia, it's just push a little bit further. There is a chance it could happen. Now, what I would like to see would be, catch up from your perspective, right? Is this national level engagement with donors and UN and NGOs, right? Will actually be able to push agenda given the situation now, or is it too premature to do this? What's your assessment?
Indonesia in particular, or more?
Perhaps beyond Indonesia. I mean, Indonesia we all know right now since we are bragging so much. But what's your observation in other countries? I know that Philippines is more or less like Indonesia, right? Other countries.
Yeah, so let me think back a little bit, but maybe actually just I really want to kind of second what you're saying about Indonesia. It's really, really showing the way forward, I think, for many countries about how localization can look in practice, and I really want to support that because it is really, I think it's pretty great what we're seeing here. This is also why I came to begin with to look at Indonesia as a case study here. And I do believe that the NRGs have a lot of potential also, as you were saying, about to really push that agenda, to have that engagement, and to really put localization on the, or keep having the conversation about localization. I think there is a great potential in that. I think also a little bit what I said before, that there needs to be, I mean, everybody has to come in with an open mind, right? So the NRGs have to come in with an open mind to understand the perspectives and the challenges of the international system, and the international system have to come in with a perspective of trying to understand the national realities. And I think without that openness on both sides, I I worry about the potential or that conformative potential. But if everybody agrees to have that mindset coming into the cooperation like that, I actually think we can start to transform the way we do humanitarian aid internationally and nationally today.
Now, you might be wondering, colleagues, so what an RT looks like? Will it be a meeting of 60 or 200 people or what? I guess if we visualize national reference group, it will be a small group of 10 or 12 people at the senior level, right? And so civil society will be represented there, the UN, the donors, the government, perhaps private sector even, right? A small group of people at the senior level who will not be discussing technical issues. They will not talk about how to bring this rice from here to there. Rather, they will be talking about strategic matters. What will happen to the humanitarian scene in Indonesia for the next 2 years, right? How do we make sure that the disabled group and women be participating fully? A question like, how can we include the affected communities into the conversation? A question that does not require solution at technical level, right? And each of the members of NRG as a constituent, they will bring back to their groups to implement according to their setup and framework. So this is more consultative. The good thing about it is what Ivan was saying. Now you have a channel from Indonesia to Geneva directly. There's no more need for us. Could you pass on my voice, please? Can I give you a little letter to you and pass it on to Geneva? We will have a direct line to conversation at global level. So we can contribute to that conversation and we will benefit from what's going on globally. Next slide, please. Okay, this is the step that needs to be followed.
Yeah, can I actually say something about that? I think one of the things I'm most excited about NRGs is that it's not only the link between Indonesia and Geneva, but it's the link between Indonesia and Somalia and South Sudan and Colombia. That to me, that's the exciting part. The exciting part that Global South leaders can come together, which is the point of NEAR, right? So to me, that's super exciting because you can allow for contextualization in each country, which you can also allow for lessons learned amongst the constituency that is the largest constituency. So to me, that's actually the most exciting.
Just accentuate that one. Colleagues, I would like you to know, in the Grand Bargain, there are 67 countries and agencies that sign up. 67. Guess how many of them from Global South? 2. None of them are government. One is NEAR Network, the other one is BNPB, based in India. Only 2 organizations of 67. How can you participate in that? Right? So with NRG, hopefully as Ivan was saying, not only Indonesia connected to Geneva, but this NRG will allow us to connect and build solidarity among the Global South. Indonesia, Somalia, Bangladesh, Honduras, Colombia, Fiji, Solomon Island. These are all the Global South, represented by 2 organizations. That's a joke. Let's change it. As if I'm campaigning at the presidency. Your question is, what is it that we're going to do, 5 more minutes, to make this NRG a reality?
Yeah, so right now there are conversations.
And what NEAR is going to do to support this?
So there are conversations, I believe, in 8 countries right now. DRC, Philippines, Indonesia, and many others, about what an NRG could look like. So our role is NEAR, part of the facilitation group, which is the steering committee for the Grand Bargain, is to actually provide support. So for us, it's to hopefully get resources for the NRGs, is to provide technical support if needed, and this idea of connecting the different countries, which is where I'm excited, and ultimately to be able to politically push at the Geneva, the Washington, the London level for these voices to be heard, for there to be more representation, not only in the Grand Bargain, but in other processes and other circles as well.
But in terms of timeline, I think we have something strategic at hand. for the next month, I will still chairing the Grand Bargain Facilitation Group. Right? So we have in 1 month, calling from civil society, the donors, INGO, the UN, if we want to take this opportunity to take the first step, discussion around the table about it, we can bring it to Geneva, as long as when I'm chair. So you can use this one, or we miss it and wait for the next trade. Last word, Kacha, on the energy. What makes you excited? Is there anything that makes you worry?
Let's start with what I may worry about, actually.
It is a good one.
Yeah.
Not only example, but also what makes you worry?
Yeah. Just one thing of caution, I guess, or one thing to be mindful of when we continue down the path of the NRGs, which I think has a lot of potential. That is, we need to critically look at what's already there and link to the systems already existing in Indonesia. I mean, Indonesia has been responding very well, actually, to crisis for a long time, and there are systems in place. The question is, how do they fit with the NRG, and how is that merger going to happen? I think that's what I'm not worried about it. It's more like let's keep that in mind. Yeah. I think on the potential side, I think exactly as you've been saying, both of you, I mean, we need the national, we need the local voices in humanitarian coordination at all levels. And I actually think, I mean, we're in 2022 now, it's about high time that voice is being amplified, and I think the NRGs has loads of potential to do that.
I don't want to put Kacha on the spot, but any scheme like this globally, we need to have supporters among the northern countries. If we shout only on the south, it wouldn't work. So I was whispering to Kacha, what is the chance to pushing further Denmark's support to this initiative? No, I'm not putting you on the spot, but it's recorded and broadcasted throughout the world. But we appreciate the support from countries from the north, INGOs, UN agencies, and others to be behind the scheme. Deepak, what's from you? What makes you excited and worried about energy?
Look, I think it's an opportunity. I've been with NIR for 5 years now. I've hit my head against the wall many a times. This is actually really the opportunity. It's an opportunity to have real representation. It's an opportunity to amplify voices. It's an opportunity to really be a part of the system while kind of moving forward local leadership. So for me, it's a really exciting time. Like you said, you know, NIR has the seat through Puji at the annual Grand Bargain meeting this year. So it's really important for us to be able to move forward with strong messages. But I would love to see in a year from now what this all looks like. I think it will start to look really, really different.
Colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, that's the end of our conversation with Hiba from NIR Network and Kacha, a researcher on localization. And yours truly, Puji Pujiano from Rumah Resiliensi Indonesia, Pujiano Center, and the Indonesia Alliance of Development and Humanitarian. Thank you very much, Ivan and Kacha, and Mas Rizal, back to you.
Thank you very much for NIR, Network for Empower Aid Response. Okay, and Babuji in the, the driving seat of, what do you call it, Babuji? Grand Bargain, and then it is a big opportunity for us to use that, to leverage that. Thank you very much for NIR. Okay.